Welcome in. It is the North Side Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Woodmeyer, talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. And what a week it was for the Chicago Cubs. They enter play tonight, Jason, having won 6 in a row. I believe that's tied for the longest win streak in the majors right now with the Atlanta Braves, who are also red hot. And the Cubs taking on the Phillies in game 2 of that set later on this evening. If you're watching, obviously, via the YouTube, you can see to the right the rundown that we have there. And we're starting with quite the interesting bat in the lineup that is slowly but surely just, I feel like we're watching someone who's figuring it out, Jason, at the major league level, and that is Moises Ballesteros. And I think it's interesting when you talk and listen to athletes, whether in it's Major League Baseball, it's NBA, it's NFL. A lot of times going from their first year to their second year, you'll see improvements across the board. And a lot of times when athletes get asked, like, hey, was it just, really busting your tail in the off season, getting to the grind, all those things, they'll say that. But a lot of athletes will say, things just started to slow down. The game started to slow down. And when I'm watching Ballesteros' approach, and I read a really interesting article on our website about maybe some tinkering going on with his swing, but it does seem like someone who's just a lot more comfortable playing at the major league level, and major league parks is starting to become the norm, and he's settling into that role. And it has been extremely fun to watch Moises Ballesteros. And, the article I read, and then I went and looked at his numbers too. You're talking about a guy who has increased bat speed, increased exit velo numbers. I mentioned the slight tinkering with his swing, and it's really paying off. I think the one thing I really like for him specifically right now, Jason, is he's pretty much the designated hitter for the Cubs. And so it kind of gives him the luxury of really focusing in more and more on his approach at the plate. Ideally, and you've brought this up, and I think you hit the nail on the head every time you have, ideally you get him behind the plate at some point for, a handful of games this season. And obviously you have Carson Kelly and Miguel Amaya, but if you can get Ballesteros back there for, a start here or there, I think it'd be nice. But for right now, the bat is the strength of his game, and he's really being able to focus in on that, and it's paying off handsomely.
Yeah, it really is. He's been awesome. Just pulling up his Savant page, you can see his exit velocity is 89th percentile, barrel percentage 85th percentile, hard hit percentage 95th percentile. And I think the 95th percentile, especially in the hard hit category, is something that we should probably be taking note of, because a lot of times when you see these like really, really, really insane, hard hit percentages or something like that, what you're looking at is somebody who is just like absolutely smashing the ball into the ground a lot. But his launch angle is 14.6%. So we're not seeing somebody who is like smashing the ball into the ground based on his swing. His ground ball percentage is 36.1%. That's below league average. So you've got somebody who's hitting the ball hard, hitting the ball in the air, has increased his bat speed, has increased his fast swing rate. So he's swinging fast more often. And he has 9 hits on the season on the first pitch. So this is big because last year he was not a free swinger. He swung about 10.3% of the time. In terms of his blast, in terms of his squared up, it was a 25.8% swing. He is swinging more. He's swinging harder. He's making really good contact with this. This is awesome. Now, I will throw maybe a little bit of cold water onto everything. And that cold water is to remind us that he is being used in the strictest of platoon situations right now. This is not somebody who the team has decided is capable against left-handed pitching in any way, shape, or form. He's gotten 3 plate appearances against lefties all year. So his numbers right now are definitely curated. And so what that means is that the Cubs are picking and choosing when they want him to bat. So his numbers are probably better than he really is, right? So like if you were looking right now and you looked at his WRC plus and you're like, that's a 185. Like, wow, this is like, they got a star right now. Those numbers are better than they should be because he's not facing lefties. He missed a couple of tough righties early in the season when I suspect they were probably working with a couple swing things. But he's somebody who's being given his best opportunities. His BABIP is running 424. He's not going to keep that. So that's my cold water. The back end of that, we're going to finish on the positives. The ex-WOBA is a 365. That's going to play. And, if he can keep that, just to say, if he can keep that, if we're looking at the primary position DH, and this is one of the things where I think people were maybe concerned, where I had some concern with Ballesteros, like, is he going to hit enough to be a DH, or does he have to play some catcher to make him useful? If he can keep his ex-WOBA, right, his ex-WOBA saying 365, primary DH last year, league average was 335. That number will play if he can keep that expected data in range of where his actual data is, even as a DH. So is that his best outcome? No, I think his best outcome is probably like 1A, 1B catcher. He catches 40 to 60 times a season while putting up good offensive numbers. Even as a DH, this will play. If you want to say, well, what if you have just a guy who's hitting against right-handed pitching? So we look at that league data, WOBA 342. So even in curated plate appearances, he is showing that he is capable of keeping up with the standard league average, and a bit better than that, league average DH left-handed hitter against righties in that kind of long, that big part of the platoon. So like really positive. I think we're in a pretty good place right now with Ballesteros. We're seeing really nice like adjustments. We should also expect that the league is going to readjust to this at some point. Like this isn't a finished product. The BABIP is too high right now. Pitchers are going to figure out when hitters make changes. They're slow to it. It's not always a tomorrow thing, but we should probably expect that that's going to kind of come back down a little bit. But overall, like this is as good of a first, 50 plate appearances on the season that you could have asked for from Ballesteros. He's hitting the ball in the air. He's hitting the ball hard. All good things.
Don't you like that they're not putting too much on his plate, like expecting him to, be penciled in when there's a lefty on the mound, always have those at bats? I sort of like the slow approach with him because, his confidence just has to be oozing every time he's at the plate. So at some point, it's like, hey, if he's going to be a full-time player down the road, like he's going to have to figure out a way to face lefties too, and you're going to have to feel comfortable doing it. But I don't mind the slower approach the Cubs are taking with Ballesteros, especially, again, like you mentioned, with the early results.
Yeah, he's a rookie, and we don't want to throw too much on their plates. There's a lot of learning going on, and right now, there's been a lot of talk about the gap between AAA and Major League hitting. Right, the gap between what's it called, pitching, between AAA and Major League pitching has been widening. So a lot of times when these guys are coming up, they're seeing things that they didn't see in Iowa. Kind of seeing that right now. We get into the minor league report with things like Jackson Wiggins and Cade Horton, in that, like, if you're going to blow your arm up, like, don't waste pitches in Iowa. Like, if you could throw 98 miles an hour, you might as well do it at the major league level, skip Iowa. So what we also have to remember is that these rookies are not seeing a lot of the Cade Hortons, the Jackson Wiggins, the Chase Burnses of the pitching world. They're kind of skipping AAA and throwing them right to the major leagues because, listen, if you got 6 years before their arm blows up, why would you spend half of it in, how would you spend half a year in AAA if you could throw them in major league level? So a lot of these minor league hitters are kind of missing this. So when they're coming up, they don't get that. And so to give Ballesteros kind of a soft landing, I think is important. I think it's important to give any rookie that kind of soft landing. Either the soft landing of, like, we're not asking you to be the savior. Like, you aren't go out and play every day, but if you're not amazing for 2 or 3 months, we can survive, right? That's one soft landing. You can do that if you're a team who expects to win 75 games. If you're going to win 75 games, go out there and have a soft landing. If you're playing for the Chicago White Sox, that's a pretty soft landing right now. Nobody's going to expect a ton of you. Like, you can learn as you go. And if by the end of the year you've learned, but you weren't really helping us win every day, that's fine, because the soft landing is the pressure isn't there. On the other hand, if you're going to play for a team like the Cubs, who, listen, if this team does not go to the playoffs, I think there's going to be a lot of questions. This is a team that probably, if they don't win the NL Central, regardless of why they wouldn't win the NL Central, people are going to be having questions about why they didn't win the Central. So that's not a typical soft landing. Moises Ballesteros, as a designated hitter, has an even like a harder landing because the bat needs to raise to such a level. If you come up as a last year third baseman, had a 93 WRC plus, DH had a 115. Like that's not, to be an average DH, you need to hit major league pitching better than 15%. Like that's just the average. That's the up. You're a ho-hum DH. You're 15% better at hitting than everybody else. And that's a very difficult landing for a prospect to come in and say, listen, we know you didn't see this kind of pitching in Iowa. We know that the run environment in Iowa, they moved the fences back because it's so easy to hit at Iowa right now. We know that the run environment in Iowa is favorable to you. We know you didn't see these pitching, but hey, by the way, immediately you need to be 15% better than league average just to be okay at your position. That's a hard landing, man. That's a tough landing. So to be able to take some things off of his plate and say, listen, just get really good at hitting right-handed hitters. We just want you to be good at this. And then you can pinch hit for him. You can take those things out. You can make him feel success and then slowly build those things in. That's a good thing. And the Cubs, really did that. We complain a lot about the bench. I know we did last year, but right now, the Cubs bench is really good between Matt Shaw, between Michael Conforto. Can't believe I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about him in the unsung heroes part. I left him for dead. Hello, Mr. Michael Conforto. I see your game. My fault. Like he looks like maybe he's not like your all-time best player. He doesn't need to be. He doesn't need to be vintage prime Mike Trout. He looks like a useful hitter off the bench and somebody who, like, in a big at bat, he's going to run you a professional at bat. He's not going to swing and miss. He's not going to look completely lost. Not a great defensive right fielder. He made that terrible play in Tampa, but he's going to probably catch the fly ball most of the time. But he's also somebody that you can play with Ballesteros. Ballesteros sees a tough lefty. You go with Matt Shaw. They go back and they double you up. They say, all right, we're going to give you a righty with sinkers. Well, now you've got Conforto. So they kind of have this nice little A to B to C all game from Ballesteros to Shaw to Conforto, where they can just keep using those players in good positions. And so DH is a tough spot to succeed in right away. But I think the Cubs have given Ballesteros a good runway to succeed in. And that's probably, success begets success a lot of times. And I think that there's probably an aspect of that here at play.
It is the Northside Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I'm Mitch Woodmeyer, talking anything and everything Chicago Cubs baseball. We'll get you ready for Cubs-Phillies later on tonight. Cubs took game one of that series on Monday. Another bat that is sizzling, not surprising in the slightest, Nico Hoerner, and he just keeps delivering. There was a sequence over the weekend against the sinking ship that is the New York Mets. It's 10 or 11 straight losses for them after the Cubs swept them. I know they're welcoming in the Twins right now, and it's early, right? But I have a couple friends that are Mets fans, and you talk to them, and the sky is falling right now. But there was a sequence over the weekend, Jason, where it's bottom 10, it's 1-1. PCA's on third, so you just smack that into the outfield pretty much anywhere as long as it's not overly shallow, and PCA is gonna tag up. And Nico Hoerner's at the dish against 37-year-old Craig Kimbrell. And the reason I bring up his age is, 37-year-old Craig Kimbrell does not have the stuff that 27-year-old Craig Kimbrell had when it comes to, wiping out a batter with his stuff. And Nico Hoerner comes up, and my first thought was Mendoza's going to walk him. Like, they're going to put Nico Hoerner on first just because PCA is the runner at third, your fastest base runner, and Nico Hoerner is at the plate. And I'm seeing a guy who's 99th percentile in whip percentage, 97th percentile in strikeout percentage, 90th percentile in squaring it up. And you blend that with what Craig Kimbrell is at this stage in his career, and it's like, okay, there is an overwhelming opportunity here where the ball's just going to be put in play to some degree. I don't know if it's a fly ball, a line drive, a ground ball, but the ball is going to be put in play if you decide to pitch to Nico Hoerner. You have a better chance of striking out. I think it was Michael Busch who was up next. And that's not a slight against Michael Busch. It's just pointing out the numbers with Nico Hoerner. Mendoza decides to pitch to Nico Hoerner, have Kimbrell do that, fly ball into right field. PCA tags up. They pull the curtains down on another win. And I couldn't believe that they decided to pitch to Nico Hoerner. And it continued a trend of a guy who just keeps stepping up, keeps delivering at the top of the order. And the one thing that I'm super giddy about with Nico Hoerner is we see athletes from time to time when they get the extension, right? They get the contract extension, that first big one, and it's not that they want to, but a certain mindset can take over, even if it's for a brief period of time, Jason. And we've seen it time and again, even with our own favorite teams. it can become easier to kind of just exhale and relax a little bit. I don't want to say they kick their feet up, but you can get a little complacent. Nico Horner is the exact opposite of that. He got the payday that he so well deserved just a little while ago, and he's still delivering time and time again for the Cubs, to the point where you wonder, like, is he the most valuable bat in this lineup right now? He's been that good for the Cubs.
He's been awesome. I mean, a lot of really good credit to him this year. He's hitting the ball in the air more. He's converted a lot of ground balls to line drives. That's really been the big thing that he's done. So I know that there's probably a contingency of people who are going to be concerned about, like, well, is he going to try to hit too many home runs? This is going to ruin his offensive profile. But I don't necessarily think he's trying to hit more home runs. It feels like it's more converting ground balls into line drives, and that's a big thing. So if we look at just kind of expected data, like league wide, like, if you hit a line drive, it's a batting average over 600. That's the expected batting average on line drives. Like, you hit a line drive, that's where you're at. You hit a ground ball, that percentage is much lower. It's in the 200s. So you're gaining somewhere between like 300 to 350 points on batting average by converting a ground ball into a line drive. And this year alone, if you're looking at the Nico Horner data, he has increased his line drive percentage by almost 5%. So he's sitting at a 25.6 line drives. His ground ball rate is sitting at 35.9. So he is taking those ground balls, he's converting them more into line drives and fly balls. The fly ball percentage is up. It's up 5% as well. But if you're going to take those percents and they're going to translate into line drives and fly balls, you're still coming out ahead. Those few fly balls that maybe would have snuck in as a ground ball, that's one or two, you're going to make up for that by getting 2 or 3 hits out of those line drives. He's going to be fine. And you know what? If he keeps up his normal fly ball home run rate, then even hitting a couple more fly balls, he'll hit a couple extra home runs. Like, he'll just run into a couple. So I think we're seeing the best version of Nico Horner right now. He's somebody who generally outperforms his X data. So that's his expected data. But his X WOBA right now is a 347, which is really, really, really high for somebody who is going to have the kind of defensive impact that Nico Horner is going to have. But, if we're just looking, again, we're going to go to last year's data and we pull up everybody who plays second base. The amount of hitters who had a WOBA over 347, Jazz Chisholm, Jorge Polanco, Ketel Marte. That's it. So if he's going to have a WOBA over 347 and play league best defense at second base, that he's awesome. So, like, that, maybe he's not your most valuable bat, but he might be your most valuable position player. And it's fun because they have, Pete Crow Armstrong in the outfield as well. These are two hitters who, when they're hitting well, they're adding so much extra value with their base running, with their fielding. They have this just nice floor of guys. And then when you get a Nico Horner breakthrough right now, we'll see where it goes from here, whether this is sustainable or whether this is a hot streak. It doesn't really matter. They're still accruing value right now. They're getting wins right now out of it. And I think you're just kind of seeing what the Cubs, what the best version of Nico Horner can be. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. And it's really refreshing to see that, as somebody who, I'll be honest with you, I think he got underpaid by the Cubs. I think the Cubs, I know it's kind of hard to say that at $140 million, but mathing it out, this was somebody I thought probably 160 on the thing. But if he's going to be like this is legitimately, like, I mean, again, we're 3 weeks in, but like, he keeps this up, that's $200 million contract. And I think the Cubs hit on the right time for this. So awesome from Nico. He's been fantastic. He's been so much fun.
Yeah, and he's a name that, once you get that deal, there's expectations in place and you're expected to step up and deliver. And he's one of those names, and he's just doing it for the Cubs. On the flip side of that, Jason, as we sort of pivot, some unsung heroes for the Cubs, some names that, aren't making $140 million combined, right? When you talk about some of these names. And I know we have some different ones. You hinted at one of yours earlier. We're talking about a Cubs team that you're dealt the gut punch of Cade Horton being out for the season. You're still waiting for Justin Steele to come back after his injury last, whatever that was, late March, early April in Texas. And a guy that I've talked about before, and I won you over with him a year ago when I kept just harping about it because it's nothing special. It is nothing flashy, Jason. But one of my unsung heroes early on in the season is Colin Ray. And Colin Ray was doing Colin Ray stuff on Monday, 6 2/3 innings, 1 run allowed. In his last 15 outings dating back to last year, he's yielded more than 3 runs just one time. And he's the guy, Jason, where we've talked about it. You need him out of the bullpen? Fine. A fill-in starter? Sure. Long-term starter? Perfect. He's just, it's not flashy. It doesn't jump off the page. The advanced numbers probably aren't the prettiest thing to look at, but the dude he goes out and he just gets it done. Like, he is becoming a pitcher for the Cubs the last couple of years where you kind of know what you're going to get. It's 5 to 6 innings, and it's going to be, maybe a run or 2, or once in a while 3 runs allowed, but nothing crazy unless, it's pretty much like every once in a blue moon. And he's in that role again where they need him to start every 5th day. He's picking the ball up, and I thought he's just good at limiting the chaos and limiting the damage, and he did that again in his most recent start. So he is certainly one of my unsung heroes for the Cubs.
And it's hard not to be. And actually, the advanced data loves some Colin Ray this year.
Do they? Okay, let's go.
Yeah. 3 ERA, expected ERA 3.35, FIP 3.30, xFIP 3.53, already 0.4 FWAR picked up. His strikeout percentage up, walk percentage down. Big thing, ground ball percentage. He is a ground ball machine right now. So not only is he showing like good data, like there is what we would call FIP beater data here. And when I say FIP beater, I mean that's somebody who should have an ERA that comes in below his fielding independent pitching. That's when we boil it down. The pitching really only directly affects strikeouts, balls, and home runs. Everything else, you add some other human being into the equation. So it takes out all batted ball data in the field. I think it's a good number. I think we probably have gotten to a point now with Savant and everything like that. We probably need to take into account batted ball data within the field as well. But without that aside, beating FIP is kind of a good luck indicator. If you see a guy with a 2.5 ERA and a FIP of 4, it's usually a sign that regression is coming. However, we know that there is a way that you beat FIP. Kyle Hendricks was like the king of this. He would always have mediocre FIPs and be an ERA leader. And that's because you limit FIPs by limiting your walks and upping your strikeouts. And if you do those two things, FIP can't see it. And that's because if you don't let people on base to begin with, they can't score. And if they do get on base and you consistently wipe them out with double plays, they can't score. So if we look at Colin Ray's numbers right now, he's not only showing great data, he's also showing great underlying data that you could even say might actually be a little unlucky with kind of his results. So Colin Ray is awesome. That isn't to say he's going to finish like this. I mean, we're 24 innings in.
Yeah.
Like none of this data is stable at this point. More than likely, normal Colin Ray is going to pop up at some point. That said, velo is up. He's 35 years old, and he looks like somebody that, if you were to ask me right now, like when Boyd comes back, who's the first one you're dropping from your rotation? It's not Colin Ray, right? When Justin Steele comes back, if you said, who's the next person you're going to drop from your rotation? I'm not quite certain it's Colin Ray right now. And that's a credit to him and what he's been able to do. A credit to the Cubs on making sure that they didn't just worry about extending him, but they also have a team option on him next year. Like, he's turned into a really nice little major league pitcher in an advanced age. He's great story. Went out to Japan, came back. Cool story on Colin Ray. Definitely an unsung hero. Guy that I'll talk about is somebody I talked about. We'll stay with pitching right now. Mr. Caleb Thielbar. Let's talk Caleb. I was big on Caleb last year. I'm going to be big on Caleb again. His fastball velocity is up another mile an hour. The dude is 39. I'm over here waxing poetic about Colin Ray's fastball velocity. Talk Caleb Thielbar. Dude is 39 years old. And he's been 39 for a couple of months. This is somebody who is not a young person who I think the league thought was dead after 2024. He was 37 years old. He put up a 5.32 ERA. He kind of looked dead on arrival. He came in last year and was phenomenal. I mean, just fantastic. And then this year, he's even better. At 39, his K percentage is up. His fastball has graded out as a fantastic fastball. And I just don't think we think about that when we think, 93.9 miles an hour. The stuff plus on his fastball is through the roof right now because he gets so much vertical movement. Basically, he's showing up out of the bullpen and throwing a fastball like Shota Imanaga at 94 miles an hour. This is a really, really good pitch. And then you add his like unbelievable curveball, and it's in a very weird way. If we're just looking at like stuff monsters, like guys who have excellent shape, pitch, movement stuff, Caleb Thielbar is like at the very top of the data. Just looking at our like relief pitchers, like league wide relief pitchers, and we're looking at their stuff plus. So that's their pitch model. Like how does their pitch move and everything like that? He's currently right up there in 9th. He is the 9th best stuff on stuff plus model in baseball, which is right up there. It is ahead of players like Mick Abel, Kenley Jansen, Joan Duran, Tanner Scott. These are some like stuff plus monsters most years, and he's right there. To also give a little bit of a kind of a number, Mason Miller, who has just turned into the most unhittable human being on the face of the planet, has a 128 stuff plus. Caleb Thielbar is at a 123 based on just shape and movement. Caleb Thielbar's fastball is better than Mason Miller's 104 mile an hour fastball. Like that's what we're talking about. That's an unsung hero when I think of it. Where would our bullpen be without Caleb? I don't want to know. I don't need to see it. What a fountain of youth this man has been.
Yeah, and you're talking about two guys in Colin Ray and Caleb Thielbar who are having to elevate their roles because of injuries. Palencia on the shelf, Cade Horton on the shelf, Justin Steele still not back, and they're doing it. Those were my two on my list. So if you had another one, I think.
I stole one of yours.
Yeah, that's all good. So I had Colin Ray and Thielbar, and I think you had Conforto as well, right?
Yeah, Michael Conforto. Listen, I thought he was dead on arrival. His first couple of games, he looked toasted. I really thought that the Cubs were doing that thing early on where they kind of like last gasp a guy, where they kind of give him a little bit of extra run and then they cut him. And I thought they were doing that with Conforto, but he's looked great. His BABIP is much higher than it needs to be. 500. He's never going to run that, but he's only running 31 plate appearances, so that'll probably even out. The good news is that his actual WOBA and his expected WOBA, they're right in the ballpark. He looks like a viable major league hitter, somebody who can play off the bench. This is somebody who right now you should have no problem. The data kind of says you give this guy 250 plate appearances this year, you're going to probably be okay, which is a far step up from the bullpen or the benches we were talking about last year. There's no Vidal Brujans. There's no John Birdies. We're talking Matt Shaw, Miguel Amaya, Michael Conforto. These are guys that you can use off the bench, and they're capable. So I think Michael Conforto has been a bit of an unsung hero for the Cubs. He's had some important at bats. He's had some good at bats. So I wanted to give some flowers to Mr. Conforto too. It just feels like we probably don't talk enough about him. I think a lot of us wrote him off for dead. I know I did, and I don't think that was probably very fair to him.
Yeah, and the huge at bat against his former team was pretty cool over the weekend as well to tie that game up in the 9th inning. Yes. Yeah, pretty cool, Michael Conforto. I'm just peeking real quick. If we have time, this is the Northside Baseball Podcast. Mitch Woodmeyer, Jason Ross here with you. Do you want to do a shortened version of the minor league report and throw a couple of those?
Oh, cool. Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah, we could talk one person and one person alone. Okay. Because there is one person and one person alone that I think we need to circle right now as a prospect with some potential special stuff going on. And that is Pedro Ramirez. Pedro Ramirez is 22 years old, and he is in Iowa. He is somebody who has been in the prospect circles for a little while. He was an IFA guy that the Cubs signed out of Venezuela to not really big fanfare back in 2021. He has hit at every level he has been at. Just hit. He had a 157 WRC plus in the Dominican Summer League. He came up to the Complex League. That's Arizona. First taste there, 154 WRC plus. Goes then to A-ball, 123 WRC plus. goes to high A ball at the age 20, won 12 WRC plus, goes to double A last year, won 22 WRC plus. So why the hell are we talking about this guy? Reason why: he barely hits any home runs. I mean, he was somebody who made a lot of contact, but didn't hit for a lot of power. And you kind of came away with it and you said, well, listen, this is working at low levels. Where's the power? Like, where's it going to come from? This is not a very big person. He's currently listed at 5'9", 165. That weight number is wrong. He is much more thick than 165. This happens with IFA signings, but he is probably 5'9", 5'10". Like, that's probably accurate. This is not a tall person. This is not a big person. It doesn't have a lot of power projection in there. So all of these times you say, well, he's making a lot of contact, but there's no power behind it. We've got kind of a problem. He won minor league gold gloves, but he's still a second baseman who doesn't have any power. It's hard to get excited about him. So you'd see his name pop up bottom 10 of the Cubs, like in the Cubs, minor league rankings. Be like, this is a guy who maybe comes up, maybe hits enough that he can find his way to the back end of a bench. Maybe he can kind of moonlight at third base, but he's really a second baseman. And then all of a sudden in spring, he showed up and he's looking a little different. He's looking a little bit more athletic. He looks a little bit more filled out. He looks like his swing is just a little bit better. And then AAA happened, and he has gone bananas. So to again put this out, last year in 129 games, 563 plate appearances, he hit 8 home runs. That's okay. He's 21. That's not a terrible number, but it's also not like a number that you're going to get excited about. This year, he's 22. He's played 19 games. He has 87 plate appearances. He has hit 5 home runs. He has stolen 7 bases. He has a 148 WRC plus. That's 48% better than Iowa international pitching right now. He has a walk rate of 9.2. His strikeout rate is 18.4. His isolated slugging, 278. His BABIP isn't even ridiculous. So it's not like this is somebody who is getting like ridiculous data on that. He's got a 345. This is somebody who is showing like extremely good EVs, like extremely good exit velocities. So he's making a ton of contact and was hitting the absolute piss out of the baseball. There are people who are pointing this out, that the numbers that he is showing so far through 87 plate appearances is good enough for like top 5 prospect in baseball data. Now, that's not me saying Pedro Ramirez is a top 5 prospect in baseball. He's not. There is a reason he is 22, and we are talking about him now. But his 87 plate appearances he's showing right now needs to put him on a circle. You circle that name, because that is somebody who, whether or not the Cubs have space for him is questionable, right? Do the Cubs have another infield place? Probably not. They've locked that up. One of the downsides of Nico Horner being as good as he has and getting an extension is that Pedro Ramirez doesn't have a home. But if the deadline comes, or maybe it's next year, and the Cubs need a pitcher to replace the hole that Cade Horton has left, and you got Matt Shaw sitting there, and you got a team who likes Matt Shaw as a plus third baseman, and you need a new Matt Shaw guy, Pedro Ramirez is your new Matt Shaw guy. He is somebody who you could give 400 plate appearances if you're excited about him. He's making his name noticeable. So that's my minor league report right now. It's Pedro Ramirez. You circle that name, keep an eye on it. It's too early to say this guy's going to make a top 100 list. It's too early to say this guy's your number 1 prospect. It's too early for all of that. But this is somebody who right now has a true rocket ship on the back. Everything that we are seeing from him is repeatable, and it is good. Like, this is not nothing. Oh, I forgot to add, he's a switch hitter. Sorry about that. Forgot to add that too. You've got somebody who's a switch hitter who doesn't strike out, who hits home runs now in Iowa, and he plays Gold Glove defense at second base. So, like, circle that name, because I think that's a sneaky name that a lot of us need to be paying attention to. We're probably not paying attention to it as we need to, and it's to the absurd levels now where, like, if he doesn't hit a home run, I'm almost kind of disappointed. So Pedro Ramirez, that's the minor league report today.
Love it. Let's finish up. Man, now I'm gonna have to go. Yeah, check in on Pedro Ramirez. Let's finish up taking a look around the NL Central. I'm not sure if you saw this, Jason, but entering play on this Tuesday night, you have all 5 teams in the NL Central over 500. The American League as a whole has 5 teams currently over 500, and it kind of just for the moment at least puts a light on perhaps, obviously things could change and will change, but perhaps the race to the top in the National League Central will be somewhat of a heavyweight fight between a couple of teams or a few teams. Right now, you have the Reds at 15-8. You have Cubs, Pirates, Cardinals at 13-9. Brewers are 12-9. There's just kind of one big log jam of 5 teams. The Cubs do have the best run differential at plus 34. I believe the Reds, I'll have to check here in a second. They're in first right now, but I think they have a negative run differential. But yeah, there's just kind of a log jam right now, and it's casting a light on, hey, the NL Central might be a division that deserves a little bit more attention. Obviously, we hope the Cubs still come out on top. But what are your sort of early summaries and early, I guess, things that you're looking at or around the division outside of the Cubs?
All right. So, if you're worried about where the Cubs sit in the division, for anybody out there, here's what I will say right now. I'm going to list off the amount of teams in baseball who have a lower WRC plus than the Cincinnati Reds. That's all of them. That's none of them. They're the worst. They have a 75. I'm going to also list off the amount of teams who have a lower combined FWAR of all position players. That's the list again. The Cincinnati Reds are dead last in offense. They are dead last in offensive WAR. They are not a particularly great defensive team. They're 12th, but they still have a negative differential there. They're not a particularly great base running team. Actually, I take it back. They are good. They're 5th there. But this is not a team offensively that should scare anybody. Like, their pitching has been fantastic, and I think they should get a lot of credit for that. Their pitching has been good, but they're only 12th in FWAR right there. If we're looking at their actual ERA, they're 4th, but they're like right in there with like Seattle and the Padres. This isn't like an elite pitching team. And then if we look at their like xFIP, again, Cincinnati, this is the worst team in offense. Only the White Sox and the Cardinals have worse expected FIP than the Reds. So, like, I'll say this right now. I said very early in the season that I was a little concerned with the Reds. And I still think that they're not a bad team. They can pitch. They have enough defense-ish. They base run. They've got Sal Stewart, who's fantastic. They've got guys who can play. This is not a team who looks like they're going to be there at the end of the year. Like, it's just not a team that's going to be there at the end of the year. That said, the NL Central, clearly there's something there. The Pirates don't suck. They're going to be all right. They're mid-pack in terms of pitching. When it comes to their offense, they're also 6th right now. I don't think that that's going to stick. Their expected data is a little bit low on that. I think they're kind of high on their BABIP. But like, this is probably a mid-tier offensive team and a mid-tier pitching team, like 78 to 82 win team. With the Pirates that they kind of look like right now. Defensively, they're a mess. So they'll probably throw some of that away. So maybe probably low end on that. The Cardinals are getting lucky. I don't see that the Cardinals are going to stick around. They've got some bad pitching. Offensively, they've been much better than I thought they were going to be. If we're looking at their numbers offensively, they are, where are you, St. Louis? They're 17th with a 99. That's okay. They're probably not going to stick around either. Those teams are probably going to fall off. That said, Brewers are still there. Pirates look decent. Cubs are good. Should be a tough division in the end. Even if your worst team is the Cincinnati Reds or the St. Louis Cardinals, teams who are off to a hot start, they've banked wins. They're still speed bumps. They're in your way. So that's nothing to take away from these teams. It's just kind of thinking about projecting out, where I expect those teams to be at the end. But they've banked wins. Those wins aren't going away. Those wins do exist.
Yeah.
The Reds are there. So even if the speed bump is waiting for them to fall off a little bit, that's a part of the season. And you can sit here all year and wait for a shoe to drop or somebody to turn back into a pumpkin. And sometimes it just doesn't happen until next year. So while, like, if I was projecting where the Reds are going, I think they're probably, it doesn't seem good. That said, that doesn't mean it's going to happen either. And that's kind of weird when you get teams that aren't statistically doing great, but they're sitting up there. They can create problems for you. So I think the NL Central is probably a really good division up and down. There just doesn't seem to be like a there's not a White Sox or a Rockies bad team in there. So like if you're not sitting with like a bottom 5 team, I think you've got a pretty rough go when you're playing a lot of those games against those NL Central teams.
You know what I was going to say about the Reds? I don't know if you knew this, but it piggybacks kind of off your point. And I'm not saying the Reds are a terrible team and that they're going to end up in last place, but Jason, so far this year, Cincinnati is 6-0 in one-run games, 6-0, and they are 3-0 in extra inning games. And those don't correlate because 2 of those extra inning wins were by more than 1 run. So they are 6-0 in one-run games, 3-0 in extra inning games. The reason I bring that up is the law of averages play out at some point in baseball across a 162-game season. They are going to start losing some one-run games. They are going to lose extra inning games at some point. So far combined, they are 9-0 in those games this year, which is crazy. And so I think that's just you can't live off winning one-run games at the rate that they are doing so. It eventually, law of averages plays out in baseball. As for the Cubs, tonight, we'll finish up with this. Hosting the Phillies again, the Phillies 8-14. Jesus Luzardo off to a rough start this season, and I remember when he was a name that was flirted around with the Cubs in trade talks a couple years ago. Battle of the lefties, Luzardo against Shota Imanaga. We've talked about Shota, we did last week. Just a really, really solid start to the season, like on solid grounding for Shota Imanaga.
Yeah.
So he'll be going up against Luzardo as the Cubs try to make it 7 in a row and try to get to 14-9, Jason.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good one tonight. Luzardo's probably pitched better than his numbers indicate. Shota Imanaga's been phenomenal. I'm looking forward to a good lefty matchup.
Yeah, so Cubs-Phillies tonight, and then they will, I think it's a 3-game set. They finish that up tomorrow. Yep. They just played the Phillies last week and then have them at Wrigley this week, and then it's a West Coast trip. Yeah, West Coast trip at the Dodgers this weekend and then at the Padres. So we talked too last week, Jason. We said, like, man, we think the Cubs are like they were, 7-9 or 7-8 entering last week. And we're like, man, this team's better. Like, even with the injuries, they're going to figure it out. And I looked at the schedule and I said, man, Phillies and Mets have been off to great starts, but it's still Phillies and Mets, and there's talent on those rosters. And then it's Dodgers and Padres. And we fast forward a week and the Cubs have won 6 in a row and they're 13-9, and everything feels, pretty good right now with the Cubs.
Yeah, it does. They're in a good place right now. They've taken it on the chin. The good news is that they've got reinforcements coming. Maton had a positive bullpen today. Going to keep moving in there. Palencia, they said, could be pitching by the time they head to the West Coast. It is a lat strain. It's not an oblique. Good news there. And Hunter Harvey's going to start throwing on Friday. So bullpen is coming. Oh, Ethan Roberts as well with his finger. Felt like the Cubs were cursed there. Too. Yeah. So we got Boyd's coming back too. So it looks like reinforcements are on the way. Cubs are playing great right now. West Coast trip's not going to be easy, but everything's kind of coming in the good place right now. So the Cubs are in a good place. They think they're finally starting to see maybe the team that we had hoped to see.
First pitch tonight, 6:40 p.m. at Wrigley Field. We mentioned it's the lefties, Imanaga and Luzardo, as the Cubs try to make it 7 in a row. This has been another edition of the Northside Baseball Podcast. He is Jason Ross. I am Mitch Woodmeyer. We will see you next week.